Awesome. Great. So let's get started. So we are here for the SA Ready to Work Tech Edition panel, which is part of the SA Startup Week. And I'm joined by an awesome panelist, awesome panelist. But first of all, good morning. I know it's a chilly morning in San Antonio, and I'm happy that all of you are joining us. My name is Beto Altamirano. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Iris, a company that connects people and urban stakeholders, which, by the way, we developed the 311 SA product in San Antonio. So, if you can, please download it. But today we're going to talk about the SA Ready to Work initiatives. You probably got this in the mail, right? Which says SA Ready to Work, which is a great flyer, by the way. But what is it, right? So SA Ready to Work is a free workforce training and education program designed to prepare San Antonio residents for better jobs with higher wages through tuition assistance, comprehensive support services, and emergency financial assistance. If approved by voters in November, SA Ready to Work will build upon the city's current workforce recovery efforts and impact approximately 40,000 people. Yes, 40,000 people in 4 years. Specifically, SA Ready to Work is hoping to prepare and connect more San Antonians to career in multiple fields that can pay higher wages and currently searching for talent. According to local data analyzed by our friends at the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation, we know that one of those fields is cybersecurity and technology, which I belong to. So I'm very curious about how this initiative is going to impact our industry. I'd like to welcome our panelists, rockstar panelists, by the way, to unpack how we got here and why workforce development is one of those tools we can use to advance our community. So we're joined by San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg, Alex Lopez, which is the City of San Antonio's Director of Economic Development. We also have Kevin Jones, CEO of Rackspace, huge fan of Rackspace, by the way, and Jenna Saucedo-Herrera, CEO of San Antonio Economic Development Foundation. So let's get started. Mayor, tell us about the SA Ready to Work initiative, and why do you believe that we should reallocate 1/8 cent sales tax towards this workforce program?
Well, good morning, Beto, and great to be with my fellow panelists who I greatly admire in their fields and who have all contributed to where we are today with this initiative. This is an extraordinary moment for our entire country and an opportunity, I think, that we have to capture that forces us to reassess our priorities and our resources. And I think San Antonio, like no other city, felt ourselves in the brunt of this pandemic from the very start. The images of the pandemic that are imprinted on my mind that went viral across the country are from our city, and those food bank lines where we saw the numbers of people who depended on that kind of emergency assistance go from 60,000 people a year, or 60,000 people a week in our community prior to the pandemic, when the economy was booming and we had 3.5% unemployment, to 120,000 people a week just in the days after the pandemic. It was a recognition that it's not going to be enough simply to get our economy back moving again if we go back to the same situation where so many people were depending on emergency assistance, where we had low unemployment, but an extremely high level of underemployment. So every community, including San Antonio, was forced to reassess its priorities and where our resources were going. And we got together as a community, organizers, civic leaders, education institutions, industry representatives, the business community, neighbors, and talked about that. Where do we go from here? And I think the conclusion that we all came up with is that we have to invest in our people. We have to invest in a more resilient, stronger future so that when we do get back on our feet, we're more equitable, more resilient, and in a stronger city with families who are experiencing economic mobility, not stuck in intractable poverty. So we came up with a workforce solution that allowed for the 154,000 people who filed for unemployment, whose quarter of whose jobs were not going to be available anytime within the next 5 years, to find a pathway to economic mobility. And so we are enrolling people into a job training program to train up for skills for jobs that are available today in our community that are simply posted and unfilled because we don't have workers who have those credentials and those skills to take them. So that was our emphasis, is to make sure that people could get on a path to a family sustaining wage and ultimately into economic mobility to continue to advance themselves and their families, not just for the importance of their families to sustain them, but also to lift our entire community. The other part of this, and the reason why we're using a sales tax, is that in the midst of a pandemic, this is not the time, we believe, to raise taxes. So we have to do this without raising taxes on our community that is already stressed. It requires us to reassess where our current resources are going and put them in those areas that are needed the most. And so what we're doing with SA Ready to Work is when the sales tax that is currently being allocated towards the Edwards Aquifer Protection Program and the Greenway Trails system expires next year, it will go towards this workforce program to continue it for another 4 years. Meanwhile, the Aquifer program and the Creekway Trail system are part of the capital improvement programs of the city and the county so that they will continue as well. So we're able to get people back to work, get them into a path to economic mobility, and we're doing it without raising taxes. I think this is the key to a sustainable future. It's also the key to a jumpstart of our economy, and it's a key to do it without creating further stress on families who are experiencing the brunt of this pandemic.
Thank you, Mayor. That's a great response, and it clarifies a lot of the questions that people have that have approached me. Whenever I'm talking about SA Ready to Work, I mean, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. So thank you for giving us that overview. My next question is for Jenna. So the EDF released a COVID-19 edition jobs report and releases quarterly business intelligence data through SA Works, which highlights in-demand industries and the skills required to transition into better paying and stable careers in those targeted sectors. So how has our skills gap issue become more pronounced due to the pandemic? And how will this proposed initiative help address it over time?
Well, first of all, Beto, thank you for the invitation to participate and for convening us around such a timely and important topic. And Mayor, excellent explanation. We could probably just wrap the panel now because I think you
right
everything. Just get out, everybody, and go vote for the proposition. But Beto, I appreciate that question. And why I appreciate it most is simply because the way that you captured it, the way that you phrased it. So you're alluding to the fact that there was a gap in our skills and demand for industry prior to COVID that has now been exacerbated. And that is exactly right. So if you think about those target industries that we have been working to grow within San Antonio, manufacturing, tech and cyber, as you mentioned earlier, life sciences, those industries were growing prior to COVID, and they've actually been pretty COVID proof. They continue to grow during COVID. In fact, I think today the stats are in healthcare, we've got about 6,000 open positions, cybersecurity sitting about 5,000, manufacturing's a little north of 1,000. So the jobs are there. But if you juxtapose the demand side, right, the jobs that industry needs with the supply side, let's look at our unemployment statistics. So at the climax, we had about 160,000 San Antonians that had applied for unemployment. And if you disaggregate the data and you look into the education levels, educational attainment of the 160,000 San Antonians, 80% of those San Antonians had less than a 4-year degree or less than a professional certification. And in manufacturing, tech, and life sciences, you need at least a professional certification to be able to advance in a career like that. So we've got the people, we've got the jobs. We just need to equip our people with the skill sets required to fill those jobs that existed prior to COVID and that continue to exist today and will exist well into the future. So there, again, continues to be a supply and demand gap, but it's incumbent upon us to remove those barriers that have existed, again, well before COVID, to allow our San Antonians to get the education required to fill those jobs that we're all actively working to create in both the private and public sectors in San Antonio.
Thank you, Jenna. I think data is so important When you look at data today, it creates a picture of what's going on, right? And I think you gave us an overview of what data is telling us in San Antonio, how we should act. So thank you, Jenna, for that answer. My next question is for Alex. So Alex, SA Ready to Work, when approved by voters, is scheduled to begin in 2021. But the city has a current workforce recovery program, Train for Jobs SA, that is actively enrolling participants. What does the current demand tell us about the need to invest in a multi-year workforce recovery solution? Have other large cities adopted similar workforce and education initiatives?
So good morning, and thank you for having me on the panel. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit more of the information about this proposed initiative. Starting with the second part of your question, we have actually been polling other communities. We've been talking to at least a dozen other cities at this point to see what kind of investment, how they're pivoting, what they're doing, and we haven't found any community that's doing something at the scale we are. I think there's definitely interest in doing something like this, but most of them are just trying to find what existing resources, which all cities are struggling right now. So we haven't found anybody who's doing something anywhere near the scale of what we're doing. Having said that, we're really excited about the fact that we have this model, this initiative really incorporates some of the best elements from some of the different programs that we have found. The tuition assistance component, the wraparound services, which is critical for completion. Those are some of the things that we found in other cities and in our some of the current programs within our community that we already know are very successful as well. Going to your first question, though, about why a multi-year approach. And even though our current program is very robust, and it is definitely a substantial investment, the latest statistics tell us that we still have about 50,000 San Antonio residents that are unemployed. The peak unemployment claim number was very, very high. Some of those have returned to work. Some of those are returning to work at wage levels much lower than they were before. So the situation is going to be that we need to continuously increase the skill level of our residents, even if they're working again. We need to make sure that they continue to grow. Jenna talked about the wage gap that we were experiencing before, or the skills gap that we were experiencing before. Even when we had low unemployment rates, the fact of the matter is that we still had very high poverty rates. So increasing the skill level of our residents is critical. Our current program aims to provide this type of support to up to 10,000 residents, but we know that there is substantially larger numbers of our neighbors and our friends and our family members that need this type of training as well. So a multi-year investment can really help serve a lot more of our neighbors and really kind of get more towards the skill level, the training, the certificates, and the degrees that we know are needed in so many of these fields that are proving to be more resilient through COVID.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that response. I think it's interesting that you mentioned why it's important to invest in a multi-year workforce recovery solution. I think that if we invest today, the effects of that investment are going to be felt throughout the next decade. So it's extremely important that we stress the importance of why we need to invest on that multi-year workforce recovery solution. My next question is for Kevin, which, by the way, Rackspace is a great success story of San Antonio. As a startup, you have many challenges in front of you, right? And then you grow a company and you make it so big like Rackspace. It's just a great role model. And me as a tech founder, I admire the work that Rackspace has done. And so my next question has to do with this initiative, right? And how it's going to affect tech companies, for example, or the cyber security industry. So as a member of the Mayor's Leadership Program, the Workforce and Education Task Force, you played an integral role in shaping the framework of the SA Ready to Work initiative. Why do you think it was important to have industry participation? What challenges or skills gaps do you see in the tech field in San Antonio today? And I mean, for example, I'll mention, I'm hiring right now for my tech startup, and I'm finding challenges in finding people that have those skills. So Kevin, what's your response?
Very good. Well, thanks, Beto, and thanks, Mayor Nirenberg, for having me. I'm honored to be included on this amazing panel. So here's my view. First of all, the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation and the mayor's office always do a great job of involving and collaborating with industries and the community. I think the team that's been put together, particularly for this initiative, is second to none and have done a great job of interlocking and integrating with the community. Second thing I'll mention is, San Antonio is fantastic, right? We've got a wealth of talent here, and Rackspace Technology is very grateful to be located in San Antonio. And this initiative is amazing, right? This Ready for Work initiative, it really capitalizes on the talent that we have in San Antonio. And as a voice for industry, we're of course thrilled that the money and the resources provided by this initiative will be used to train and educate the workforce. It's fantastic use of funds. And so this program is really designed to ensure that the people can be reskilled or complete their training education to meet the needs of employers today and in the future. So this interlock and industry participation, Beto, that you mentioned is really, really critical. In terms of the challenges and some of the skills that we're looking for and skill gaps in San Antonio, the first thing I'll say is we have come a long way as a community in attracting and developing talent in the technology field since Rackspace Technology started 20 years ago. We've got great collaborations all across the city with forums such as Tech Block, with whom we partner to attract great tech talent. We also partner with local universities like UTSA, Trinity, and others to engage potential talent. In terms of our needs at Rackspace Technology, we always have a need for software engineers, data analysts, frontline salespeople, support engineers. There's really something for everyone at our company. Our only challenge is that we always need more and more tech talent, particularly now that we're growing faster and faster as a company. So this Ready to Work initiative will greatly add to the technology talent pool, which is terrific for us.
Thank you, Kevin. It's interesting that you mentioned, the tech skills, right? Some people have asked me, well, what about the manufacturing jobs? Do they require tech skills? Of course they do. As we move into the 21st century, tech is going to play an integral role in our lives. So it is important that we educate ourselves on how to use this type of software or hardware, solutions. So thank you for that response, Kevin. So now we're going to talk about a little bit of what, some community members have expressed in regards to concerns or questions about the overall proposal, right? So Alex, the first question is for Alex, right? Both Train for Jobs SA and SA Ready to Work seem to go beyond a traditional workforce development program that simply focuses on training and education. What mechanisms have been put in place to ensure participants successfully complete the program?
Right. So tuition assistance is one thing. That simply removes that financial barrier that a person has to engage in the training. But there was a lot of data, there was a lot of information that we had even before the pandemic that told us that's not enough. The city had released a poverty report to really understand what the poverty condition was in our community. And one of the factors that we found was that when it comes to workforce training, wraparound support is critical. Making sure we understand participants' needs when they're coming in. And there could be issues, academic remediation, especially with some of the residents that we're going to be engaging with now. They may not have been in a formal training environment for years, possibly decades. They may have been working in fields that really experienced and have been impacted by COVID. So that wraparound support is going to be critical to make sure that they can complete the training, helping them navigate through any of the type of barriers that come up as a person is going through either a degree track or a workforce training track. It's very important that they continue to receive that support because, again, like I mentioned, the financial assistance is not enough. It's the combination of these two things that really the programs that we've been able to identify that have those true outcomes that can change a person's trajectory, their workforce trajectory. They have to combine these types of elements. The other component to it is the emergency financial assistance because things come up. things happen, and when something happens, when a car breaks down or an emergency medical bill or something, that can really derail a person's ability to focus on school and completing their training. So we want to make sure that the program is designed in a way to help people navigate through those things, help them learn and help grow how to overcome some of these barriers. One, to complete training, but then two, just as a lifelong learning opportunity that they will continue to grow their skills and grow in their careers. So I think that's why it's so important that it's not just the tuition assistance. Those other components need to be a part of it as well.
Thank you, Alex. And one thing that I've heard from the community is, there's some people shifting jobs, right, in the middle of their careers or late in their careers. If they don't have the tech skills, or let's say the digital skills to train, will the program ensure that you carry forward these people that maybe need to learn those skills as well? Does age matter? It doesn't, right?
It doesn't. And I think that's what's important, that we know there's going to be a vast number of residents that are completely going to have to pivot. We know that there are jobs in certain industries that simply are not going to come back. However, the skills that those people gained over all those years that they worked in those industries, they are transferable. So how do we cross-reference that? How do we demystify, how these skills now apply in this industry? And then how do we close the gaps, to really help provide the technical training that a person may need, because they already have the soft skills that will make them successful in that field. Now let's just couple it with the tech skills.
There you go. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. So my next question is for Jenna. So the program is aiming to train and upskill 40,000 San Antonians. Yes, 40,000 San Antonians in over 4 years. What role will the EDF play in ensuring that jobs will be available in targeted industries once participants complete the program, right? I mean, a lot of people often say, right, well, are the jobs going to be there? And it's a big question. And they are, it's a great question. Why not ask that, right? So how is the EDF balancing this?
I love that question. The EDF has been in the business of creating jobs for the past 45 years. So to be perfectly candid here, I am not at all worried about job production. I mentioned several existing openings today within those target industries. But if you just think back at some of the recent announcements with Navistar, full capacity, they'll be north of 1,000 folks out there at their plant. We just announced another tech employer out of Canada coming into the market looking for about 100 high wage jobs here in San Antonio. So the jobs are there, and the jobs will continue to come if we can prove to these organizations that we can find the local talent. So Rackspace and your organization, even Beto, will continue to grow here and love and prosper in San Antonio if we can find the talent that they need to scale. That's the bottom line. So we need to make sure that we are aligning to industry need. And Kevin, I think, hit this very eloquently earlier. We are not just training for the sake of training. Although one can argue that if a San Antonian achieves their bachelor's degree or that status, obviously that will drive the economy forward. But we are specifically training in the jobs and the industries that we're producing. In fact, you can take it even a step further to say within those industries, for manufacturing as an example, we know that the scarce skill set is an advanced manufacturing technician, right? And so we are working with the training providers at Alamo Community Colleges and even some private providers like on the Texas FAME side to make sure that their curriculum and their programs are aligned specifically to the industry needs. So again, we're not training just for the sake of training. We're training for what people like Kevin and you need to hire for today and then well into the future. As you said, this is not an investment in hiring someone today. It is in hiring for decades to come. This is an investment in San Antonio's future people and future employers.
I agree 100%. And you see, if we invest in this initiative today, we're going to retain talent, right? We're going to welcome talent. And this is going to benefit all industries, right? When you have high paying jobs, right? What do people do? They get to experience and enjoy the city's economy, right? They go to restaurants, they go to bars, they go to, fun places to enjoy with the family, right? And so even the food industry and the beverage industry is going to benefit. Every single industry is going to be impacted positively by investing in today's economy, right? And which is going to have a lasting, impact in the next decade. So thank you for that response, Jenna. So the next question is for Kevin. You probably have a keen sense of how well prepared you would like the future employees to be for the tech jobs currently available in your company, in Rackspace. What type of qualifications are you looking for in the tech industry in order to fill the current and future openings? And that's a question that, a lot of people that are going into coding academies or that are learning these type of software skills often ask, right? What are the qualifications that you're looking for, Kevin?
Great question. Thanks, Beto. So we look for people who are high energy, like to move fast and enjoy solving our customers' challenges. And at Rackspace Technology, we're committed to providing what we call fanatical experience to our customers. It's kind of what, we're known for in the industry, in the tech industry. So we hire people who truly want to provide that experience to customers day in and day out. And once we find the right candidates, we can always train for the skills, which is what makes Ready to Work such a wonderful initiative to get people back into the workforce. And we've seen this approach work in San Antonio for years, right? And we've seen how successful it can be. A great example of this is the Rackspace Cloud Academy, which is a program we created to prepare students from underserved communities to work for top IT companies in the city. We partner with a variety of nonprofits and organizations like Project Grant and the Veterans Administration to help students pay their tuition. In fact, 65% of applicants receive financial help. So throughout our course of our history, we've welcomed many Cloud Academy graduates as Rackspace Technology employees, and we look forward to welcoming Ready to Work candidates in the near future as well. So it's really very, very exciting.
Excellent, Kevin. And would you agree that, the skills that, for example, you learned today in software and hardware, can be skills that you can transfer into different scenarios, different companies? For example, my company focuses on GovTech and Civic Tech. Rackspace is hosting technology, right? Would you say that these skills are, you can transfer to jobs within the tech space?
Absolutely, absolutely. So not only can you transfer them all over the tech industry, which is amazing, right? It's an incredible industry that's growing really, really fast, but every company now is really a tech company. This is kind of the point you made earlier, right? So if you look at manufacturing companies, you look at retail companies, they all have online presence, right? They all have a very high degree of technology and automation built into their operations. So if you get, qualified and gain skills to be at a tech company, you can work anywhere in any company in the world.
I agree 100%. It's important to understand that, those skills that we learn today will help us in the future. And most importantly, I think coding and technology, the way that we built our software and hardware, are the language of the future, right? So every single industry is going to benefit from, having those type of skills. So my next question is for the mayor. So what indicators will be tracked to ensure that the program is successful? What does success look like for you, Mayor?
Well, it's a myriad thing and some specifics, but before I answer your question, I do want to underscore two things because I think they're extraordinary. What you just said and what Kevin said, what you said about the fact that every industry, this entire community benefits when people are lifted out of poverty, when people have discretionary income where they can take care of their families, but also participate in the local economy. Every single business, the mom and pop shop on the corner to the bigger companies that are going to employ are going to benefit when people have more disposable income and are no longer dependent on the kind of emergency assistance programs. And the other thing is that every job that people are training for, a specific career, a specific job training track is going to involve those skills that are transferable. Every job in this economy and the coming economy is a STEM job. And that's what we need to make sure that people have. They're equipped with those skills that give themselves and their families the mobility. But, in terms of the success, these are tax dollars. These are public resources that we're committing to each other to get our community back on its feet. We're rallying as a community. And so we want to make sure that we can measure the success. And obviously, we're going to look at some specific metrics, such as degree and certificate completion. We'll be looking at job placement rates, but also job retention rates here in San Antonio. And then ultimately, increased wages. As someone moves through the program, we're going to be tracking the success of the program over time to see wages start to increase, not just for the individual participant, but for the overall economy. And to me, the markers of success, there are many, but let's be clear. When we invest in people, when we invest in our own people and community, human capital and talent here in San Antonio, we all win. And what I look forward most to seeing is over time, obviously our poverty rate begin to decline. The number of people and families who are depending on emergency assistance programs begin to decline. So as people achieve economic mobility, they're no longer being saddled by consumer debt, that there's more ability for people to thrive and to enjoy life in this city. And that's what I look forward to most. And it's going to make everyone's work easier. It's going to make Jenna's job easier, because businesses here in San Antonio that are anchored here are going to be able to grow. They're going to be able to, bring new brands and companies into San Antonio who will employ your children and grandchildren. It's just going to make everything, it's like putting water into a thirsty plant. I mean, our people are ready to, and want investment into our own human infrastructure. And that's what this program's all about.
Thank you, Mayor. So what would you say, Mayor, to the people that are undecided about this proposition, that are interested, they're curious about this proposition, but they're interested in knowing how it's going to affect them today? And also, my second question to that is, how is this going to affect business owners or entrepreneurs? Because at the end of the day, this is the San Antonio Startup Week, panel. So how is this going to help startup founders as well?
Yeah, well, on the second part, entrepreneurship and small business startup growth is built on that kind of ingenuity and skill and talent that is actually fundamental to this program. That's what we're trying to infuse this community with and equip our people with. And so I believe that the entrepreneurship and startup sectors will thrive. And that means actual San Antonio residents who are putting their life earnings into starting a company are going to benefit from that. They're going to receive that family return on investment by taking a risk and starting a business here in San Antonio. That's going to be a wonderful thing to see. With respect to somebody who's undecided, I will say this. In a crisis moment, and in crises and emergencies in the recent history of San Antonio, this community has done something I think as well or better than any community in the nation is, and that is we rally, we show teamwork, we come together, and we figure out solutions to complex issues. We've done that in this case. Every community in the country is asking themselves the same question, which is, where do we go from here? And San Antonio, through a diverse mix of people, through industry, education, community organizing, civic leaders, neighbors, came together and worked on this solution or the answer to this question. And we came up with the answer, and that is, if we invest in people, together we will thrive. And in typical San Antonio fashion, we were able to do it without raising taxes. If you're ever going to take a risk on the people of this city, and that's what Proppy is all about.
Thank you, Mayor. Those are that's strong words and strong vision. So we want to go with some Q&As. Let's see what we have over here. So we're linked through Facebook and also through Zoom. But okay, let's see. Okay, so we have an immediate question right here. So the question is, how, and this is for Kevin. Hey, Kevin, so how is the tech sector, right, going to apply directly these jobs that are being created over the next 4 years? The question is about how are you going to onboard, people? Is there like a program, that you visualize, like internships, fellowships? How would that look like, to get people to learn the skills through that practical approach? Because I'll tell you, so today we have an internship program, right, where we onboard people and then we hire them. Will this be similar? Could there be some sort of a program that onboards, potential interns or fellows or some sort of apprentice program, and then they fully onboard into a company?
Sure, absolutely. It's a great question. There's a number of different routes into our company, for example, to do that. One is what I mentioned earlier, which is Rackspace Cloud Academy. And again, we're willing to work with organizations to help with tuition assistance for this kind of hands-on skills training to learn how to basically do a great job either in business analysis or coding, like you mentioned, technical programming in the cloud. So this is a skill that anyone can learn. We've got this academy set up. It's in San Antonio that we can run for folks, and we're doing it virtually as well. So that's one route in, so people can get the skills. Another route in, as you mentioned, are positions that we post that are open, and we've got many positions open already. That if you're already qualified, you can come in to Rackspace Technology and you can fill one of the openings. And we also have internships that we offer. So kind of between those two approaches that I mentioned, if some folks just want to do it for the summer, we've got internship programs, for example, or maybe just for 2 or 3 months at a time. So we've got a variety of ways forward here. Already open positions in a company that's growing very, very quickly, and it's based in San Antonio. So that's, again, why I'm so excited about this Ready to Work initiative, because as Jenna mentioned, we have the people here. We need to just help them develop these skills, and the Ready to Work initiative does that. And then we have the openings, the job openings on the other side.
Awesome. Jenna, what are your thoughts on that?
So first of all, it's great to hear, one of our largest tech employers discussing their own internal work-based learning programs, because we know that experiential learning is very effective for, on-the-job training and helping to move these folks forward within their career tracks. But I have to pitch, right? You mentioned earlier, we've got 2 programs. We've got the SA Ready to Work, and we've got Train for Jobs SA, right? The existing program that is even pre-ballot initiative, where the city is leveraging some of their own funding and some federal CARES funding to invest in San Antonians actively today. And there's a significant on-the-job training element of that program. So if there are any, even small entrepreneurial organizations, any tech organizations, actually any industry, but we're primarily focused on our key target industries that I previously mentioned. If any of those employers are interested in taking on some OJTs, as we're referring to them as, the city is actually subsidizing those roles, right? So paying for them to come on within your organization for a few weeks. The idea is that obviously you're training them, you're indoctrinating your culture, right? But then obviously the idea is that they come on full time. So if there are any folks listening to this that are interested in OJT, please feel free to reach out to me directly. That's a great program for us. And again, it'll be incorporated into the ballot initiative going forward, but it's also active and effective today if anybody's interested in taking on those roles.
Thank you, Jenna. Great response. Another question that I have here that I just received via text actually is that, is this program for all ages? So Alex, I have this question is for you. So what would you tell that person that might be cautious in regards to this proposition because she or he doesn't know if it's going to affect them because they might be over 60 years old, but they do want to pivot. They do want a career in a different field. What would you tell that person?
Absolutely. I think that it is an opportunity for anybody of any age that wants to re-engage at upskill, re-engage into the workforce. We know either by necessity or by interest, we may have older residents that need to stay in the workforce. So we want to make sure that we are continuing to provide those opportunities at whatever skill level they're at right now, to make sure we provide that opportunity for them to grow. On average, we're finding, and this is some of the data based on the unemployment claims, we're kind of seeing, mid 30s to 40s seems to be the age range that was most substantially impacted. But there's still, a great opportunity there to pivot into a new exciting career, like Jenna's mentioned, that has opportunities available right now. So regardless of the age, I think it's important. If you're ready, we're ready.
I love that response. So we have a question. It says, is there a local agency to govern tech standards? Who wants to answer that? Mayor?
To govern specifically tech standards?
That was the question by Andrew Brown, actually. So I guess the question is, geared towards how this program is gonna have influence or be able to also govern tech standards in San Antonio.
So the way I'm reading that, the way I understand that question is there, is there oversight in terms of the licensure and accreditation of certain skill sets that we're going to be training for? And I would say absolutely. And that's why it's so critically important that industry is aligned with this program. I pin a lot of the success of this program on keeping industry at the table, because as Jenna said, we could train all day long for great, education, but if there's not a job at the end of it that sustains a family and a worker, then what is it good for? What's the return on investment, not only to the participant, but also for the community? So industry is at the table, and as skills are required for particular job sets or for sectors, we want to align those, and those accreditation programs are going to be strictly governed by those oversight agencies and by the industries themselves. Coding is a good example of that. I don't know what the latest language is, Beto, you could probably tell us, but if you're doing, is Drupal a thing anymore? If you want to get that certificate.
If you're using, you're developing an app, Swift, okay, Java. Yeah, of course, there's so many languages. But
but that's kind of the point. There is a governing body depending on what kind of certification it is, and we will certainly be aligned with those.
Yeah, and if I could jump in as well, I think Mr. Mayor said it very well. There's lots of technical certifications available, hundreds and hundreds of certifications across all programming languages. The hottest ones for us at our company are the public cloud certifications, so Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure. There's VMware private cloud certifications that we have. There's all sorts of application certifications as well. So this is the great thing, right, about learning these skills, is that you can get on-the-job training, you can get these certifications, and then you can, again, work anywhere in tech or in other industries.
Thank you.
So can I answer that in a different way? And by the way, thanks for the clarity on the question. I was thinking big tech governance control. I was taking that a totally different direction. But I think the question made a lot of good sense. I would take it a step further. It's not just about refining the programs for the scarce skill sets within the targeted industries that everybody has previously mentioned. It's also making sure that these are quality programs, right? We're not just going to send folks through programs to say they checked a box and got a degree if our employers aren't hiring out of those programs. And sadly, that's been a situation we've dealt with in the past within our target industry. So we were going to, existing programs, but they weren't at the standard that we needed them to be at for our employers to feel comfortable and confident hiring those folks here locally. And that's a problem. We're doing a disservice to our San Antonians. And so there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes, not only to align the different programs, but to make sure that those programs are quality programs for San Antonians.
Thank you, Jenna. And they did clarify the question, and it had to do with skills. So I think, Kevin and the mayor and Jenna answered the question. Yes, there will be a specific skills that will be developed for, a specific job. So I hope that, clarifies and answers the question. So we have one more question for all panelists, and we can, each can, talk a little bit about what they think regarding the question, but it's about, what would you like the viewers, what would you leave the viewers with in regards to the SA Ready to Work initiative? What are your thoughts on this program? Why do you support it so much? How is it going to impact the future of San Antonio? We can start with Kevin, and we can end with the mayor.
Thanks, Beto. So look, as the mayor said, San Antonio has been hit really hard by the pandemic, and the unemployment rate has increased significantly. The Ready to Work initiative is our chance to come together and set the city up for success now and in the future. Look, everyone deserves a chance. In fact, the only reason I'm a CEO today is because people took a chance on me and invested in me. So the Ready to Work initiative will open the door for a lot of people and truly make a difference and a lasting impact for everyone.
Yeah, and I'll chime in there. I think Kevin said that extremely well. But 2020 has been a crazy year, right? We're dealing with so many different simultaneous crises, being one economic, one health driven, one regarding racial injustices. And now is the best time to level set as a community, as we're thinking about, going forward, what does our economic development path look like? How do we invest in our San Antonio community? But it's also a good time for us to reflect as people. I know I've done a lot of reflecting. I'm sure each of you on this panel have as well. And so what I'd say is this isn't about other people. It's about all of San Antonio. So I would say, when you go out and you're voting, think about what this could mean to you specifically, and how you can better yourself and how you can invest in yourself through this program, because that's what this is about. And just thanks in advance to everybody who believes in the program, believes in San Antonio's opportunity, and takes a chance on investing in yourself and investing in the rest of the San Antonio community.
So I guess I think of two things. The first one being that I've had the privilege of working in economic development now for about 10 years, and half of that time has been in small business development, and then this other half has been, in a more global way. And over that whole time, we've known that workforce development, the skills gap that we talked about earlier, has been an issue. And so the opportunity to impact that in a very meaningful way is exciting. It's getting towards what Jenna said. It's investing back in our people, that human capital component. As part of the city, we build lots of things. We build roads, we build libraries, and this is about building our people. So I think that part is critical to it. The other piece is that we're kind of getting a running start. This initiative would get a running start because of so much of the work that our current program, that foundation that it's laying. So I think that's what makes it even more exciting, because we're just going to be able to keep building on the momentum that we're building right now. Thank you.
And I would add, well, first of all, amen and hallelujah to everything that Jenna and Kevin and Alex just said. But what I would add is that San Antonio has already set the model for this. And something that we've talked a little bit about, but not a whole lot, is the fact that every single participant in this program is going to have a case manager, a counselor to help them ensure success, to anticipate and navigate through any challenge that might arise that would prevent that person from continuing their skill training. They're going to have assistance along the way to make sure that they can make ends meet while they're in the training program. We've had that model, and it's been lauded nationally. It's been written up in the New York Times and many other publications. A program like Project Quest, which has been lauded about that's the right formula for success, that intensive focus on the individual participant and what that person might encounter. The challenge and the question that has risen from that is that if it's so good, then why don't you do it broadly? Why don't you do it citywide? And in order to do that, you have to have three things. You have to have resources, you have to have demand, and you have to have political will. And at varying times, we've had one or a couple of those things. But here we are in the midst of a pandemic, without raising taxes, mind you. But we have the resources. We've identified how we are going to fuel this program. The hardest part is matching those resources to a demand, because there are people who are out of work, who are underemployed, who can use these programs. But never in our generation, in our lifetimes, have we seen such an immediate crushing demand, where someone who is a moment away from economic catastrophe now needs to be into a training program and receive assistance. Well, we have that on broad scale now. That the pandemic has become that event, that catastrophic moment for tens of thousands of San Antonio families who now need help. And then the third thing, so we have the resources, we have the demand, and now we have the political will. It's on the ballot. It requires your voice to approve. And I would say we're not waiting here in San Antonio for Washington. We are taking bold action with the voices of our community at the table. We are taking bold action to bridge that gap and allow folks invest in people, invest in families, invest in them in our own community. Us, as Jenna said, we're investing in us to help people get into a path to economic mobility through jobs that are available today: healthcare, technology, construction, trades, you name it. They're waiting for us to fill them, and we are going to provide that pathway. So this is an extraordinary moment. I think it will be a moment that we pin on the timeline as when we decided to be different as a city, and that we made a decision to come back, not just come back from this pandemic, but come back stronger, more resilient, and more equitable. So thank you very much, Beto, for this great discussion.
Thank you, Mayor, for your vision. It's powerful, and I'm excited about what's next for San Antonio. And I got one question from Tech Blog. They asked me, why San Antonio? What motivates you to keep your company here? You know, San Antonio, it makes you fall in love with the idea of building the city up, right? I often talk to my friends who are leaders in the industry as well, in entrepreneurship, or that are starting a company, and they're scrappy as well, right? And they're getting excited about why San Antonio. And I think San Antonio makes you fall in love with that idea. There's a lot of room for growth, but we need initiatives like SA Ready to Work to nurture that environment, that innovation that Kevin was talking about. So that's why I'm excited about this initiative. And thank you, Mayor, for pushing it forward. We appreciate that. And so if you're interested in learning more about SA Ready to Work, visit the city's website, www.sanantonio.gov, or you can enroll in Train for Jobs SA by calling 311. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
Bye, all.